Manny Pacquiao. So I guess it's official. Manny Pacquiao has been stripped of his belt. Um, I guess they put him on this thing. I guess quote champion in recess. It just means they stripped you of your belt. Basically that means like you're inactive. Basically, I guess. So they stripped him of his belt, and Ugas is now the full champion at 147 pounds. What I thought was going to be next for Ugas at first was going to be, I thought Keith Thurman was going to end up fighting Ugas next. Before obviously became full champion. And I thought after he did that, there's a possibility that Keith Thurman might have then became the full WBA champion, because I didn't think see Manny Pacquiao really fight. I thought he was going to fight Earl Spence this year, but I thought Ugas was going to fight Keith Thurman. Then Keith Thurman was going to end up fighting Earl Spence, unless Manny Pacquiao fought Earl Spence. Then Manny Pacquiao would fight Earl Spence, but then Earl Spence would still end up fighting the winner of Ugas versus Thurman. But that's out the window now. You know what I mean? And before we get into that, also people need to remember that this is a person that Terrence Crawford could have fought. Terrence Crawford could have fought a Sean Porter. He chose not to do that. And we all saw what happened with Sean Porter and Earl Spence. He could have fought, and he still refuses to fight him now. His camp. People don't want to say him, his camp. He could have fought a Danny Garcia. They didn't want to give Danny Garcia a realistic contract that would actually offer to make him actually, say, oh, okay, let's see if we can make this work. It was offered so low, the guy was just like, whatever. I got an Earl Spence fight coming up. I'm good. I'm about to make $3 million fighting this nobody over here. And after that, it's on to the big fight. He had that available to him. That fight didn't happen, And Ugas is another guy that he could have fought. He could have fought him before. His last fight could have been against Ugas. And or he could have had something set up where he was fighting Ugas next, already all set up. And in doing so, ironically, his fight would have been a unification between the two belts. Or if he had fought Ugas before, he would have became the mandatory WBA. He would have had that, plus he would have had the regular WBA championship or whatever. And since Manny Pacquiao got stripped, now Terrence Crawford would be unified. He'd have two of the belts. And Ugas was willing to fight him. I guess Ugas said they talked to him one time and they never contacted him ever again. No offers were sent, nothing. So that's another fight that Crawford could have had. This is another move, another chess move he could have made that would have put himself into position, to get that 50-50 that he wants. Because nothing wrong with him wanting that 50-50. But if you want that 50-50, you got to put in that work that's equal to whether you can then ask for it. If you have put yourself into a space where you were doing 300,000 plus pay-per-views as well, you can ask for it. If you were knocking off all these other fights for Earl Spence, he wouldn't even have been able to have done those fights, because if he's doing those fights after you, no one cares. It's like, okay, and, we already saw what Terrence Crawford did to him. But he chose not to do that as well. So the biggest loser out of this is Terrence Crawford. They said Sean Porter wouldn't sell. That sold 300,000 plus. They said Mikey Garcia fight wouldn't sell. That sold 300,000 plus. They said Danny Garcia wouldn't sell. That sold 300,000 plus. Earl Spence is about to do 300,000 plus pay-per-views against Ugas. And the thing with Ugas is, we all saw how difficult the fight between Earl Spence and Sean Porter was. We saw how difficult that was. Most people believe that Ugas beat Sean Porter in the fight that they had previously. So in a way, the person that's fighting Earl Spence right now will be the person who was the rightful owner of that WBC championship that Sean Porter brought into that ring. And you don't see Sean Porter saying, hey, let's do this, let's do that rematch again. Let's do this rematch. You didn't see him doing that at all. You know, you saw him sitting back, laying back, and ironically, that's another move that even Sean Porter could have did. If he had did the rematch with Ugas, you know, right now he would be the WBA champion. He'd be fighting Earl Spence again in a big unification for all three belts. But he didn't make that chess move either, just like Terence Crawford did it. You know? But because of that fight that Sean Porter had with Ugas, it puts into the stage, it puts into a situation where people can see this as it's like a legit fight between these two, because Ugas is battle tested. You know, he is battle tested, and he proved his worth. We've seen him fight after that as well. Him be dominant in all his fights after that as well. You know, so it's a great fight between these two. You know, big time unification. This is crazy. There's a possibility that the rightful Derek James, the rightful trainer of the year, that should have been effing trainer of the year in everybody's list or whatever, things of awards, could possibly have two fighters in his stable that hold 3 out of the 4 belts in their division. That's insane. I don't know if anybody can even claim. There's a possibility that by next year, Derek James could have 2 undisputed fighters in his stable. It's possible. And they still won't give him trainer of the year, by the way, even if he does that. Because there's a possibility that this year that Jermell Charles is going to become undisputed this year. You know? And he still won't be in the pound for pound list. And Derek James still won't get trainer of the year, which is some BS, but it's the life we live in. Just, got to be tuned with the reality of the situations that we have. But this is perfect, because now it doesn't matter who Manny Pacquiao fights. Manny Pacquiao can go fight whoever the hell he wants to fight. He can fight Ryan Garcia. He can fight Ghostbusters. It doesn't matter who he fights anymore. And this is how it should have been the whole time. If Manny Pacquiao didn't want to be in the mix, he wanted to do his own thing, that's fine. You know what I mean? That's cool. Even like Floyd Mayweather. I don't care what Floyd Mayweather does. I don't care who he fights, because he doesn't hold a belt. He's not holding the division hostage. So it doesn't matter if he does exhibitions, if he does real fights against lower tier fighters. It does not matter, because he's not claiming to be, the man anymore, the king. Like, now I'm doing my own thing over here. Y'all do y'all thing. I'm doing my own thing over here. I'm not fighting no real fighters. I'm not fighting no real fights. And he makes it very, very clear. He makes it very clear. So there's nothing wrong with it. So, you know what I mean? Shout out to Manny Pacquiao. Wish him the best. Let him do whatever the hell that he does. And let's get this unification on. It's going to be a big fight. And Ugas is going to be the big winner in this. He deserves this. He's worked a long time for this, And when you're particular fighters, who it's hard for you to get into certain spaces, this is the reason why you signed to Al Heyman. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out.